Hello and welcome to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that didn't want to wait for this life to be over before doing an episode on Dawson's Creek. I'm your host, Alex Principal Greenwood, and joining me is my co-host, Stu Jaws Lindley. Stu, the day has arrived. We're going to Capeside. I can't believe my luck.
Nothing you said there means anything to me. I'm supposed to be on holiday. I'm not even supposed to be here. You're minding the shop for this one. But then it was pointed out that the small print of my contract states that I have to be on hand for the intro and outro of each episode, at least. So
Yeah.
here I am, dragged back from my holiday to come and do this intro for the Dawson's Creek episode. But I'm very happy for you, mate, and I'm happy to at least be here for this fleeting appearance before you take it away with Keith and Kathryn.
Oh, no, I'm so glad that you jumped on that flight from Calabona, and you're getting the first one back, aren't you, after the recording finishes?
Oh, that's right. There's a car outside. There's a taxi outside waiting to take me straight back there. So yeah, it's and also the contract states that I have to be in the UK to record as well. I can't do it from the holiday, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had to come all the way back. But there is a Fiat Uno with my suitcase strapped to the roof, with its engine running outside, waiting to whisk me back to Bristol Airport. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a taxing, isn't it? That recording on home soil only, I think. Something to do with HMRC. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's something to do with that.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned it when he called me and said that I had to come back. It's something to do with that, but I'm sure he's got everything under control and that he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Before we get on to anything further, today's episode is sponsored by Comet. So head down to any Comet outlet and quote the code ALLRIGHT90s to receive 10% off their entire range of white goods, including the brand new fridge freezer range from Candy. So it's a hot deal to keep your food cold, courtesy of this episode's sponsors, Comet. Come to Comet.
That's a great host read there for the ad. That's absolutely fantastic. And thanks, as always, to Comet for helping us out tonight. Used to love walking past the window of Comet, and they used to have the television set up in the window with the cameras that were facing out towards the
Yes.
shopping centre, so that you could see yourself walking past. This is a bit of a trope, but did you ever stand outside a television shop at 4:45 on a Saturday and watch the football results come in? Did you ever do that?
I can't really remember if I've done that or I've just manufactured a false memory because that's something that everyone talks about. I've definitely stood
Hmm.
outside TV shops looking at the TVs, but that's just because I'm a human being and I'm drawn to TV screens wherever they are, whatever they're showing. But I don't know if I did watch football results come in. Did you?
I have a very strong memory of watching them come in on the video printer on the small television in the clubhouse at Cowan Town, when my dad and I used to go and watch them, when Nobby Bush was in charge over there. But it was always either Sports Report or the video printer at home normally, if we weren't on the road on that Saturday. So yeah, no, never in the shopping centre. The shopping had always sort of been completed long before 4:45 on the Saturday. That was very much a morning activity.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but maybe next time I find myself in the precinct at 4:45, I'll try and find the nearest tech shop and see if they still even do that. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. That thrill of seeing yourself on screen because they've got the camera facing out is something, and again, at the risk of sounding like a different sort of podcast and a different sort of Instagram account, is something that kids just won't understand, Stu, is it? Now we live in the era of phones where you can film yourself like it's nothing, that thrill is long gone.
It used to be a massive thrill. It used to be the only place you could see it happen, unless you were lucky enough to get picked up on the local news for whatever reason. But yeah, that was the only place you could see it, and it's a sad day that thrill is gone, as BB King once sang. Time now for the long-awaited return of Anecdote Roulette. We have literally been inundated with faxes asking where this feature's been in recent weeks, so we're bringing it back. Because obviously it's very popular with the listeners. So Alex, you can choose from this time: my mum and dad in Jersey, my mum's wedding rings on the beach, water polo at the Springfield, attending a Christian festival by accident, dropping a roast dinner, or the man with a salt packet stuck to his bum.
Well, the Olympics is upon us now, so I think it seems like a good time to do the water polo story. So let's go for that.
A great choice, a great choice. You were a pupil of Caution Regis. I was a pupil of Caution Primary, so we went to different primary schools. Did both primary schools take swimming lessons at the Springfield Centre in the pool there?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, strong memories of that.
Brilliant. Yeah, that was my first introduction to swimming, really. And this is where this memory really springs from. I was about year three or year four. And after the swimming lesson had finished, we were obviously working very hard on our front crawl and everything, trying to actually learn to swim. But normally at the end of every lesson, there'd be some sort of game involving a ball or floats or whatever, just as a little treat at the end of the session, probably just to make up some time. Now thinking about it, but who really knows? And on this occasion, we were playing water polo end to end in the pool. So there were the stronger, more confident people in the deep end, and obviously the less confident people like me were in the shallow end. And I decided, because I had recently taken this up in football, I decided I was going to play in goal. So to score a goal, the object was to throw a ball past the opposition goalkeeper onto the side of the pool. And as I said, I had elected to play in goal at the shallow end, basically just to try and stay out of trouble. Now, I was obviously far too young for contact lenses, and I cannot see anything without my glasses or contact lenses. So whenever I went to swimming lessons throughout my school career, because I didn't really get into contact lenses until I was about 16, I was basically blind. I couldn't really see what I was doing. I could only see sort of outlines and shapes and things like that. So it might not have been a good idea for me to play in goal for this anyway, because I couldn't really see the ball. um, and that really is where the memory springs from, because I was in possession of the ball at our end, the shallow end of the pool. A few of my teammates were shouting for me to throw them the ball. I obviously couldn't really see who was who, so I just picked one and threw it to them. I threw it to a lad called Gareth Bartlett, who was on the opposite team, who then said, "Thanks for that, mate," and threw it straight back past me as hard as he could and scored a goal. And that's my memory of playing water polo at the Springfield. The goal was allowed to stand, Alex, if you can believe that.
I can't believe that. No,
Absolutely appalling refereeing.
that is the injustice of that. There's injustice on so many levels, and yeah, that's upsetting. It's an upsetting memory, but hilarious all the same.
I mean, I can look back on it now, etc., etc. But surely the teacher who was refereeing must have known what situation I was in, and must have known that I, was sort of visually impaired to that extent, and might have stepped in to intervene, or maybe they didn't. I don't know. I wasn't very popular with my teammates, because I believe we did lose the game because of that, and no amount of excuses, but the fact that I couldn't really see really cut any mustard with them. So, but I would have been just as useless on the outfield, right? Because I wouldn't have been able to see the ball coming towards me anyway.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so that's water polo in the Springfield. An ignominious goal that I let in early on in my goalkeeping career, which now I think about it, actually probably set the standard for the sort of 30 years that followed.
Yeah, who'd have thought that that experience would have given you the taste to go on to become a passionate goalkeeper for so many years?
Well, I stuck at it. I knew that it was something I loved, and I stuck at it. And just this Friday passed, we had a testimonial for one of our five-a-side lads who was leaving and is not going to be playing with us anymore. And I saved his penalty at his own testimonial, and he did not score. And I've never been prouder.
That's the ruthless streak that got you exactly where you are in the world of goalkeeping.
Time now for What's the Most 90s, and I think, Alex, we're going to get a little bit animated about this one, if you catch my drift, because we are talking about who the most 90s cartoon character is.
Well, if you'll allow me, Stu, I have gone for a duo rather than a single character because I think these two characters are so synonymous with each other. You never really saw them apart. It is Beavis and Butthead. Now, this I think is a very American choice. They weren't that popular over here, but we were still aware of them, very much so. And their initial run in the States, at least, was in 93 to 97, so very firmly within the 90s. There was a reboot, or they came back again in some form in the 2000s and the 2010s, I believe, but very much at their height in the 90s. And there was, of course, Beavis and Butthead Do America, which was their film, their first film in 1997, with the greatest ever Red Hot Chili Peppers song as part of the soundtrack. And I just think that Beavis and Butthead are the cultural representation of Gen X. It's the TV program that I think most sums up the teenagers of the very early 90s. So I think that makes them Gen X. So the people who were sort of born in the end of the 70s and yeah, came of age around the late 80s, early 90s. So the grunge generation, I suppose, and the MTV generation. And I think this is what they were watching on TV. So I would say, definitely the most early 90s cartoon characters. And I think, yeah, they have to be my choice just for that. Such a strong connection to the early 90s and that whole culture around that time. How do you feel about that? Is that a bit too American?
No, I don't think so. My strongest memories of Beavis and Butthead don't actually come from the Beavis and Butthead show itself. I had a Sega Mega Drive game, Beavis and Butthead game,
Hmm.
for reasons I can't quite recall. It must have been one of those £5 bargains that we picked up in Games Exchange. But we had that, and also I remember seeing them compete on a animated show called Celebrity Deathmatch,
Oh yes, of course,
which
yeah.
was sort of in the early 2000s, and Beavis and Butthead were competitors in there. And I remember seeing that at a sort of all-nighter at my friend Rob Price's house when it was his 12th birthday, and he had
Hmm.
satellite and I didn't, and we stayed up all night watching things like Celebrity Deathmatch. Um, I do have to say, Love Roller Coaster, the Chili Peppers version of Love Roller Coaster, although it is a fine song, you need to let me educate you in the Chili Peppers discography, mate, because there's far much more to explore there, far much more to explore than that. But no, a solid choice, and I've actually gone for something sort of American Canadian as well. So it's going to be a duke out here, I think.
Okay, go on.
So my character does again come from an ensemble, but I think they're sort of easier to separate out, and I've gone for Eric Cartman from South Park. Um,
Nice, nice.
He was a huge character in the late 90s, South Park launching in 1997 and reaching these shores a little bit later on. There was a real merchandise boom around South Park as well. So again, I knew the program not so much from actually watching it, but from just all the merchandise that was around. So I remember my friends having South Park pencil cases, and I got a South Park birthday card with a little Cartman fridge magnet, which my parents still have on their fridge to this day. So every time I go around there, the Cartman magnet is on there and it says kick ass underneath it. I remember sort of sneaking a look at it when it was on late on Channel 4, and I was lucky enough to have a TV in my bedroom, and my parents were downstairs, obviously watching what they were watching, and I was able to sort of watch it with the sound turned down or watch the first part before they came upstairs. And the first sort of full South Park episodes I saw were at my friend Ben Lynch's house. I went around there for dinner one night, and then he asked his mum if he could watch his South Park video with me after dinner. And then she said, "Oh, are you allowed to watch this at home?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely," which I wasn't really. But they were the first sort of full length episodes I saw. I think the one where Officer Bar Brady comes out as not being able to read. I seem to remember being one of those ones, were the first ones that I watched at Ben Lynch's house. But then later on, I did watch an episode with my parents, and I don't know which episode it's from, but they're at some sort of theme park, and there's a ride called the Chamber of Farts, and my mum found this uncontrollably funny. A bit like this, the random Simpsons moment that she found funny, which I spoke about on the episode with Max. There was this Chamber of Farts episode, which I remember her really laughing about. And then after that, it was sort of okay to watch South Park, I think, because after that there was no going back. If my mum laughed at it, then it was okay. But yeah, plenty of merchandise in the late 90s. I had a few bits and pieces myself, character key rings and all that. But Cartman, I think, was the standout character. Probably Cartman and Kenny for various reasons, but Cartman was definitely one of the standout characters from South Park, and that's why I've gone for him.
I think it's a good choice, and it works well with mine because it's sort of the spiritual successor to Beavis and Butthead, I think, South
Hmm.
Park. You know, Beavis and Butthead were the beginning of the decade and then South Park at the end. And a massive merchandise cash cow, wasn't it? I remember there was this particular pencil case that everyone had in my year. It was like a black sort of vinyl one with just the four characters in color on the front.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was such a common pencil case. And I had a massive oversized keyring of Cartman. It's like the size of a tennis ball, sort of thing that's completely impractical for a keyring. But
Yeah.
I had that for a bit.
Yeah. I had the Chef and Mr. Hanky ones of those.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. And well, and of course, yeah, that reminds me there was Chef's chocolate salty ball single, so it really was just everywhere.
Hmm.
And yeah, really good choice, I think. I think this is almost impossible to pick between these two choices.
It's a dead heat. It's either going to be a toss of a coin or we put them both in, I think.
I think they should both go in because they're two ends of the decade, aren't they? So it's okay to have them both, I think.
Yeah, and two ends of the same spectrum as well. That sort of irreverent adult comedy, which children like us weren't really supposed to watch, but did anyway, and that's why it
Yeah.
sticks so fondly in the memory. So yeah, I think they're both worthy of a place. Okay, well, I think Keith and Kathryn are ready to go now about Dawson's Creek, so I'll just go and wait in the lobby with Jeff, shall I?
I think if you could, yeah, it'd be for the best.
Yep. Okay. No worries. Just let me give me a few seconds here, and I'll just leave you to it. Okay. Have a good one, mate. I'll
Okay.
see you for the outro. All right.
Cheers. Yeah, no worries. See you in a bit. Who better to be joined by for my trip to Capeside than two of the hosts from the two greatest Dawson's Creek podcasts ever recorded? All the way from Dover, Delaware is Keith from the Dawson's Black podcast, and all the way from Teesside is Kathryn from the Dawson's Weekly podcast. Guys, how is it going?
I can't
Hi.
complain.
This has been some time in the planning and organizing, and I'm so glad and honored that we could get you two on the pod. Stu obviously is not here because he couldn't care less about Dawson's Creek, but I think you two together are more than ample replacement.
Worthy replaces for Stu.
Yeah,
Will he
yeah.
even listen to this? Will
I
he
don't know.
even listen to it,
He
Alex?
probably won't even listen to it now.
He sounds like my co-host. She doesn't even listen to our own podcast.
I mean, that's shocking. That is shocking. Right, before we go any further, I'm aware Dawson's Creek started in the 90s, but more of it ran into the 2000s than the 90s. But we're allowing that because it started in the 90s. I think it's sort of seen as 90s TV, even if it did go into 2000s. So that's why we're allowing it. I don't want anyone to email in and complain. So I'll just get that out of the way now. But let's start, I think, with the personal connections to the show. So when did we first discover the program? How many times have we watched it, and what does it mean to us?
Believe it or not, when the show first came out, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the show. I didn't quite connect with it. The only reason why I really wanted to watch the show was because Joshua Jackson was on it, and I was a huge Mighty Ducks fan, huge Mighty Ducks fan. And my favorite one out of those three is the last one. But I started connecting to it as I got older, because I have a nostalgic thing going on in my brain all the time. And the way I connect with it as I'm older, I just see a lot of myself in all these characters. At about 30, 40 years old, I see myself in them when I was like 16, 15 years old. So that's kind of the connection I have with them. And like with them specifically, like, Pacey, he has that heroism complex. I have that. Jen sometimes could be a fish out of water. In certain moments in my high school career, quote unquote, I was kind of a fish out of water. Joey being the intellectual one, wanted to go to college. I didn't necessarily was like super hyped to get out of Dover, but I definitely wanted to go to a huge college. And Dawson, I think Dawson is I think he's a part of us that people don't want to admit that we are at times. I really think like this, like the curious, like that episode where he's curious as to why Jen broke up with him. I think a lot of us want to do that, but it doesn't always seem like a normal thing to do, so we just don't go after that. As far as asking somebody why they made us feel this sad, but he was willing to try to go and figure out that answer, and I think that's a part of all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. So that's kind of how I connect with the show and those characters.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, a really good way of looking at it. And so you didn't watch it when it first came on. This was a few years later that you properly got into it then.
The thing here's how I really got into it. The way I really got into it was I was at work. Now I'm about 35 years old, 34 years old. I'm at work, and this lady on the job comes up to me, younger girl, says, "Hey, you got to watch the show called Pretty Little Liars." I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not watching a show called Pretty Little Liars. I'm like, there's no way she's going to convince me to watch this show. So she's like, you know what? You got to figure out who this A person is. I was like, A person. And she's like, Keith, you're the only one that can figure it out. So she touched my ego just a bit there. So I said, okay, I'll try to see if I can figure this out. I said, man, this is a teen show. One episode, and I'll be done figuring it out. It took 3 seasons in, I still didn't figure out who A was. But as I'm watching the show,
I don't think they even knew, Keith.
Kathryn, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't even know until the reveal in like season 6. But what started to happen was that I started falling in love with the relationships of the show. And one of my favorite relationships on there is Spencer and Toby. So as I'm watching, I'm like, I missed this. I was like, where can I get more of this? And my first thought was Dawson's Creek. It was the first thought that came to my head. So I popped in Dawson's Creek, fell in love with the show probably at like 34 years old, 33. And that's kind of like really my real introduction to it. Not my real introduction, but it was just what made me fall in love with the show, just remembering how much I loved seeing people in love on TV as teens.
Awesome.
Yeah. Actually, when you think about it, there's a little bit more in common with Pretty Little Liars, because season 6 of both shows were an absolute shit show as well.
Yeah,
But
season 6 of Pretty Little Liars it's
it's
challenging.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's a nice way of putting it. It's a
yeah, that
great.
show was.
If anyone's listening, Pretty Little Liars is definitely worth a go, especially the first few seasons. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first 3 seasons. I think if you ended at the 3rd season, I think it's probably a perfect show. But they kept getting money, so they had to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely something in common.
Again, sounds
Yeah,
familiar. Yeah.
it does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, Kathryn, when did you discover Dawson's Creek?
Well, the funny thing is, it's so, like, I think I've said this on before on our podcast, or maybe on someone else's podcast, maybe on Critique as well, Keith. That back in the day in 1998, I just left school. I'd just done my GCSEs, so I was going into sixth form college for another 2 years of education. And my memory of it, and I don't know whether I've created this memory, was summer 1998, and it was on Channel 4, Alex. Do you remember that? And they really bigged it up, and I was like, right, I gotta watch this show, Dawson's Creek. I wasn't doing any exams, so I was like, I gotta watch it. It was like that sort of that water cooler TV where it had been like everyone had really got into it in the States, and we'd heard about it, and we were going to watch this show. And it was similar-ish for my so-called life a couple of years before. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I went to sixth form college, and I got talking to this really pretty girl with long blonde hair who was dating my ex-boyfriend and didn't like me. And we got stuck together somewhere. And I said to her, and we had the same name, we were both called Katie. And I said to her, you watch Dawson's Creek? And over, yeah, almost 30 years later, that was our podcast, and we talked again and again about we've got to find a time to just sit together and rewatch Dawson's Creek because of the way it
Wow.
worked on TV in the UK. Yeah. And it came on Netflix. It came on Netflix, and we were so excited. We were like, oh my God, Pacey, we've got to watch some Dawson's Creek. We've got to watch Dawson's Creek. But I think for me, it was really, really interesting because I was the same age as the characters when it came out in 1998. We were about like 15, 16 years old. And it very much felt at that time like this was the TV that everyone was watching. And I don't think you really get it in the same way anymore, but I suppose you do because of streaming. We get everything at the same time, but we'd had all this buzz from America because you guys got it a bit earlier. So it just, because of the time of it, because of like, and it also had this really beautiful sort of like coastal American vibe that was just so gorgeous and interesting. And like, I think you said nostalgic as well, Keith, and there's like a real nostalgia about it, even when it was new. I don't know, but I loved it upon first sight, and the way that they talked as well. And I also got really into Scream, and I realized that the guy who wrote Scream wrote Dawson's Creek. So there was like, because I was getting into studying film and things like that at the time, so there was just so much there to love.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So I was trying to work out when it first aired in the UK because
it's difficult to find, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought I definitely didn't start watching it in 98 because it was when I was more like 14, 15, maybe 16, which was around 2000, 2001. But it was on Channel 4. This was like T4 on Sunday afternoons. So I'm thinking maybe.
Did it not, Alex, do one of the 6 till 7 slots on Channel 4, or was it always the Sunday slots?
It probably did because I think
because that was a big TV slot as well, wasn't it?
It was.
In the UK.
So I think I was maybe watching repeats, maybe a season or two behind, because I came in, around 2001, and it was halfway through season 2, and it was like you say, it was the adverts on Channel 4, and it was bigging it up as this big American show that was like a big import, and I just gave it a go randomly on this Sunday afternoon, and very quickly got straight into it because it was the first proper teen thing I'd watched. Like when I was younger, we had Biker Grove and Grange Hill,
Yeah.
but they're for like tweens and younger. So this was the first grown up thing, and it was just like, wow, what is this? So I watched it all then. I was like really hooked, and yeah, like you say, I was the same age at that point as the characters were, so it was much easier to relate to. That's such a formative time in your life, isn't it? for soaking things up and getting really attached to TV programs and music and whatnot. So it was a perfect time to discover it. And yeah, then I think when I went to uni was when I first watched it all the way through, because I guess I went to uni around season 5 and 6, but I didn't find out how it ended. And then I signed up for Love Film. Do you remember Love Film getting a DVD through the post?
Yeah.
So I did the whole thing like that. And yeah, and what can I say? This program is in my blood. This is like part of me, this program.
Yeah.
Like you, Keith, I am like so prone to nostalgia. I mean, that's why we're doing the podcast, but it is such a nostalgic program. And yeah, like you say, Kathryn, it is nostalgia is in this program, you know, just in its DNA, isn't it? It's a nostalgic program, even if you're watching it for the first time. There's just something about it that's so well made in that respect. So it was always going to connect to me. And yeah, I've got just painful nostalgia around this because it's the perfect cocktail of nostalgia. When do you both think is the high point for Dawson's Creek? What is the best season?
I think if you were 100% honest, but you know, everybody has a different opinion. Me personally, to be 100% honest with myself, I'm going to go season 2, because season 1 you got episodes like the baby and a couple episodes in the middle were okay, but it kind of ended okay. Even though I love season 1, I think season 1 is a treasure, especially specific episodes of that season. We'll get into that later. But season 2, I think when you talk about a high school teen show, the compilation of everything you want in a high school teen show where it focuses more on the teens than anything, I think season 2 is probably perfect. Season 3, I love season 3 and 4, but season 3, I think it ends great. I think it starts off a little rocky, but season 2, from beginning to the end of season 2, I think it's the best season of the show.
See, it's difficult to disagree with that, actually.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the ratings on IMDb. I should have done, but I get the idea that season 3 is maybe the highest rated, but I'm not sure. So season 2 is maybe a bit of a wild card. But Kathryn, what do you think of the 6?
Well, I feel like Keith made quite a compelling argument there, because obviously I would always say season 3, like especially from a Cinderella story onwards. But that's what the last 6 episodes of a 23 episode. But
Yeah.
I think for me, the rest of the season isn't that bad, but like there were characters and things that happened in that season that gave me genuine rage. Like genuine rage. Like we started busting out the C bomb during that season for a particular character, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But it is so perfect at the end. It is so perfectly done. Like the way that it creates that relationship between Pacey and Joy and how it manages that, and like what it makes you feel as a viewer, it just can't be beaten. So it's really, really difficult, because I think you're actually right. As a season 2 is probably better, but as a moment of a set of episodes, season 3 is just gorgeous. It's just unbeatable. It's some of the best TV. It's some of the best TV. Was the Pacey and Joey stuff, and you know, from the end of Cinderella story where he pulls her out of the car and he's like, don't you ever get tired of talking? Like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. It's ruined many people for life, I think, that storyline.
Yeah, I
Myself
remember
included.
everything. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
don't.
The way he says it, the tone, everything. Yeah. Pacey, man, he's good. He's good.
He's good. Joshua Jackson is good. He's still got it, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah, you make a really great point, Keith, about how season 3, as good as it is, it does start off with Eve and all of that storyline, and it's not the strongest start to a series.
Eve.
But
Forgot
then
all
yeah,
about her.
that's the thing you do, don't you? Because season 3 ends so
You
strongly,
block it out.
you forget about the first bit. So yeah, season 2 is really consistent. I think the first 4 series for me, all of them are just like, there's no episodes that I'll skip in any of those series. But I think the strength of the second half of season 3 and the whole thing for me, Dawson's Creek, is really all about Joey and Pacey and them getting together for the first time. That is like the heart of the whole thing. So all those episodes, that succession of episodes, is just like doesn't get any better. And I used to think that season 3 and 4 were maybe on a par, but then rewatching it, started watching it again over COVID, and then only quite recently finished it. And I think on that rewatch, I realized season 4 wasn't as good as season 3. It's like a lot darker. It's a lot more angsty. There's a lot more unhappiness, and maybe that sort of feeds into it, the general feeling for it. But I think for that reason, season 3 is probably going to be my favorite forever. And then the less said about seasons 5 and 6, the better. Although there's some high point. There's a couple of high points in there, maybe 3 or so episodes that would stand on a par with the first 4 seasons. Castaways is a classic.
Yes, Castaways is a classic.
And the long
Yeah.
goodbye with Mitch's funeral is, I think, the last truly great episode, maybe.
That's the thing. Season 5 started really well with that stuff, even though it was incredibly sad. It was actually fairly well done.
Mhm.
Because what I always say, one of the things with Dawson's Creek is its pacing is absolutely, it's sometimes really off. Like they just race through a storyline
Very true.
or
Very
drag a
true. Yeah.
boring storyline out, and you're like, eh. Whereas I thought that the Mitch stuff was the stuff that was paced quite well, and like Dawson wasn't over it in an episode, as you wouldn't be, and there was that sort of stuff and the guilt that went on around that. I thought that that was some of the more convincing stuff that's happened in Dawson's Creek, actually.
Yeah.
And that they sort of decided to tackle that and go with that. And, you know, for a young audience to be able to see things like that, because that unfortunately does happen to people, like how helpful that could have been. I don't know. I think that was one of the better points of season 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Hotel New Hampshire, and I do love Appetite for Disaster. Those two episodes that I really love. Probably my two favorite episodes of this season, along with The Long Goodbye.
Appetite for Destruction is a great,
Yeah.
it's the one where it just moves around different rooms in Grams's house.
Yeah.
It's just so clever. It's like almost like a stage play.
What about best moments and episodes as a whole? Let's start with you this time, Kathryn.
Oh, well, my favorite episode, and I'm not going to talk about Castaways. I love Castaways, but I'm not going to talk about it just yet. But obviously, Castaways, for me, a standout episode is The Longest Day. I love The Longest Day. I think it is impeccable as like a piece of narrative TV, the way that it unfolds and the different perspectives and the way that you get a bit more information. And to think that they did all of that in what, like 42 minutes, they get so much into it. And also Dawson's flaring nostrils at the end. Like I absolutely, like, I've got a soft spot. Is it a soft spot? I love Dawson's flaring nostrils. That's James Van Der Beek at his best, is his furious flaming nostrils. But I just think it's an absolutely a brilliant episode. It's so well done. Like, it's so subtle. It's so clever. Yeah, it's just, it's everything that's right. I also love Stolen Kisses. And I actually love, and I love True Love as well, of course. So a lot of end of season 3.
And The Longest Day, I think, is probably the greatest episode. Probably, if you had to pick one episode in teen TV show history, that is the greatest.
Yeah.
It'd probably be The Longest Day. You know, I think I think there's a lot of shows that are great. You know, One Tree Hill, The OC. I think a lot of them are great. But if we had to pick one episode out of all of those teen shows, I would say that one is the best one. I would say. But as far as episodes, I got quite a few actually. So in season 1, I would say the very first episode of season 1, I love. Detention is actually my favorite episode of Dawson's Creek. Is Detention. I think The Longest Day is the best episode, but Detention is my favorite episode. This Abby Morgan causing all that drama. I love Abby Morgan. Yeah.
Did you love the little bit in Detention with the Mighty Ducks reference, like about Emilio
absolutely.
Estevez?
Oh, nice. Very well said,
So
Kathryn.
clever.
Oh my
so
goodness.
clever.
Yes.
Like
I
a
love
callback
that.
to The Breakfast Club, but also linking it back in with Joshua Jackson. So good.
Exactly. When I was younger, like I was only going to watch the show because Joshua Jackson was in it when I was in high school, because I seen he was in it from the Mighty Ducks. And then I do remember seeing that episode when I was younger. Like, I didn't actually have cable at the time, but I do remember going over some females' houses, and when I was over their houses, they watched Dawson's Creek. So I did happen to see that Detention episode when he said that, and of course I got hype in the girls' room. She probably thought I was crazy or something because Joshua Jackson had referenced Mighty Ducks on there. I wanted to see Emilio Escobar come out of nowhere, but it didn't happen. But
Would have been
but yeah,
good.
Detention is my favorite episode. Period. Season 2, I love. I mean, I'm sorry, season 1. I also love the scare. I thought that was a great episode.
Brilliant episode.
Yeah, I love that one. Season 2, I love the all nighter. I thought that was a good episode where they go to Chris Wolf's house. I also love the reluctant hero. My favorite Pacey moment when he asks his Miss McPhee if he can make a sandwich for him. You know, when he's trying to calm her down when Andy's mom's going all kind of I don't want to say the wrong thing, but she's kind of having an episode in the store, and I just love how he calms her down. That's my favorite moment of the show. Period. Is when he calms her down. I just love how he did that and how he just de-escalated the situation. I think season 2 Pacey is the best character to me on the show.
Season 2's Pacey's Pond, isn't it?
Yeah. Sex She Wrote in season 2. I love that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where Abby Morgan's investigating like who had sex, you know, and she has a letter, she reads the letter off, and then Dawson and Joey start going back and forth and saying who had sex with who. I love that. I love, you know, I think when you watch these teen shows, you know, you don't watch it necessarily for all the fun stuff, but you want the drama too. You know, and Abby bought the drama, you know.
Oh, she bought the drama.
Yeah, like if Jack was gay, she kissed Jack, you know, she was doing all kinds of stuff, man. Like, see, it was just wild. And then in season 3, I did like a Virgin. I did like, because the thing about Like a Virgin that I did like about it was that season 2 was so dramatic. Like a Virgin was kind of like a perfect change of pace. You know, because that ended in season 2 with Joey's dad and all that, and then Joey telling Dawson that she don't want him to act like she even exists anymore and all that. So you know, we needed a little bit of a break. You know, I think with the season 3. So I think the start of season 3 was lighthearted. So I did like that. I did like Escape from Witch Island in season 3. I like Barefoot at Capeside with Nikki. You know what I mean? And then
I loved the Nikki character and Principal
oh
Green.
yeah.
The other really good one in season 3 was Love is the Hardest of Woods. Weekend in the Country.
Right. Oh yeah. We can
the B&B one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the one where Pacey watches Joey sleep. That one you're talking about?
The Joni Mitchell one, where Pacey somehow Pacey's people skills. Where he somehow manages to get like a totally amazing like B&B review, right, hotel reviewer in, and he gets them through these sort of weird people skills. It's the funniest thing. It's so funny. It's a brilliant episode. That it is Weekend in the Country, isn't it?
I think
so. Yeah.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Love is the Hardest of Woods.
Yeah, like with the Barefoot and Capeside episode, I love how Nikki kind of hits Dawson with she kind of changes his mind about how he looks at being a director. You know, and he goes to his house and he rips down all the posters that he had. I mean, no, he doesn't rip them down, but he takes down all the posters he had of the movies from Steven Spielberg, and he realizes that he has a broaden his horizon. So I like that episode. The Longest Day, like I said, that's the best episode. In season 4, I love the Two Gentlemen of Capeside, because even though, Dawson is mad at Pacey, Pacey knew that, even though we're in the storm, I know Dawson's still going to know where to come to find me to help me out in this situation. So I like that, how they still had that connection, even though they was at odds with each other, they still had that. The Usual Suspects, Dawson and Pacey had did a prank. They promised to do that prank. I thought that was a funny episode. A Winter's
With
Tale.
Harry Shearer as the principal. That was brilliant.
Oh yeah, that was brilliant. In the podcast when we were talking about the episode, I couldn't remember where I seen the guy from, but that's his name. Yeah, I couldn't remember where I seen.
He's
him.
Principal Skinner on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
It's so clever.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've never drawn that connection. Yeah.
Yeah,
genius.
Yeah. Kathryn's on it, man, and
it's the one time I will be on it. It's the only time, the once and only.
Yeah, a Winter's Tale and the Tea of Pacey. Those are kind of my favorites from season 4. Yeah, and that's when Joey and Pacey first have sex. So that was I like how they did. Yeah, I like how they did that. But yeah, those are my favorite episodes. I know that was kind of long, but
no, it's great. I mean, it's so hard.
Yeah,
to
they're
pick
all
from.
great episodes.
It's so hard to pick. Yeah, I mean, the one I've got here is my absolute favorite, and neither of you have mentioned, which I'm quite surprised at. My favorite episode is The Graduate, so the penultimate episode of season 4, when
Oh,
they all,
with
Okay.
Pacey in the sun, sat
yeah,
on the
yeah, yeah,
chairs in the sun.
yeah,
Yeah.
when
Oh,
they
I
all
love that
graduate.
episode.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is like nuclear level nostalgia for me, this episode, because it's such a nostalgic thing, isn't it? It's such a common thing in all coming of age films and TV programs is graduating from high school, that last summer before you leave school.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I think it just handles it really well. I think it really captures that moment when you leave school, and it's about saying, not just about saying goodbye to your friends, but it's also about saying goodbye to the people you're never going to see again. Like the people who you know a little bit. I think the character of Drew represents that for them, because he does that sort of stunt, doesn't he, with Jen, where they set off the sprinklers and you think they've been caught because they get in trouble and the principal catches them when they're setting it up, but then it happens anyway. And you see Drew and Jen laughing about it. And it's like, there's something about that I think really, I don't know, it really resonates with me. That idea of Drew is a person who you know, and you chat with him a bit throughout your school life, but then you never see him again. He is just someone from your memories. And I think
Right.
that moment captures that feeling quite well, I think. And then, yeah, Kathryn, like you say, when you see that Pacey has graduated, he's not there, so you don't know, but then they read out the names and you hear Pacey Witter. And it's just, yeah, I love that. And of course, it's all done to Fields of Gold by
Eva
what's-
Cassidy.
You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold.
Okay, let's talk about the best moments then. This is something I could do a whole podcast series on, but I think most of my moments revolve around Pacey and Joey, because
Oh, of course.
as I've said before, like that's for me is the heart of the program. We've already covered a couple of them. So Pacey kissing Joey for the first time in what's the episode?
Cinderella story.
In Cinderella Story, yeah. And obviously it ends on the fade out, so it's a cliffhanger. You don't know how it's gonna.
Oh,
Everyone's like desperate to find out what's gonna happen when they come back for the next episode. That's definitely one of my
I
favorite moments.
screamed when that. I've seen this before, and I screamed when it happened, and I knew it was coming. It's like that sort of magic of like really, really good TV and film, isn't it? That when you
Yeah.
know something's coming and yet you still get the
Mhm.
chills, you get everything. I was like, ah!
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's sort of preceded by when Pacey's watching Joey sleep in A
We're in
Weekend
the
in the
country.
Country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess is when we're first aware of the fact that Pacey loves Joey, because of the way they build it up. And one of them says like you love someone when you can watch them sleep or something like that,
Sleep.
isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Graham. I think Graham says that. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's directed and filmed in a really clever way. So the camera pans, doesn't it? And you see it and you're like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is it. This is happening. So
Right.
I think those moments are really, really nice. But then I remember everything.
My mom's bracelet.
I know.
How do you know?
Well, because you told me. 6 months ago. You were wearing that blue sweater, the snowflakes that you have. You were walking down the hallways at school. I was annoying you as per usual. I said, look, Pacey, I just found my mother's bracelet this morning, so why don't you cut me some slack?
Remember that?
I remember everything.
As Keith, you've mentioned it already. One of my favorite podcast moments of any podcast I've ever listened to is Keith describing that moment in Dawson Black, because it's like, it is, I think it's the quintessential Joey and Pacey
It's
moment.
gorgeous.
And it's like, it's entered like folklore, hasn't it? It's kind of,
Oh yeah.
Um,
It's one of those lines, man. It's just crazy that some people can have a line and it just I don't know if there's a many TV show lines that are more memorable as far as like teen. I know Ryan said I can be whoever you want to be. I know that's one, but that I remember everything. It's a really the moment and everything is a really good one.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's
Um,
gorgeous.
yeah. And I think my favorite character moment maybe is final episode of series 2 where Pacey's having that conversation with his dad. Like he's punched his dad in a I think the previous episode or earlier in the episode, and then they have that conversation on the dock. And Pacey's dad finally hugs him. He says, Andy asked me to give you this, and he gives Pacey a hug, and then Pacey starts crying. And I
Oh,
think it's such an incredible bit of acting from Joshua Jackson. It's like peak Pacey acting from Joshua Jackson. I think it's just a really amazing moment, and yeah, something that's maybe not as talked about as the stuff that happens in season 3 and 4, but it's just like such a touching moment, amazing acting.
Yeah, Dawson
Um,
Creek has a lot of moments like that. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, I think my final favorite moment is again from the Pacey and Joey stuff, but it's in Stolen Kisses when Joey first kisses Pacey, and it's Daydream Believer by Mary Beth Maziars.
If you felt even one shred of what I feel for you, then we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation.
Easy.
Cheer up, sleepy dream. Oh, what can it mean to
It's a great example of how the music can make a scene even better in Dawson's Creek. Because I think the music in general is really good in the series. So that's an example of how it really enhances a scene, and yeah, another classic Pacey and Joey moment. So they're the 4 or 5 scenes I could just about limit my my list to without going on for hours. So what about you guys?
Yeah, I've actually got quite a few moments, to be honest. I'm not necessarily going to break all of them down because it's kind of a lot, but I'm just going to kind of talk about. I wrote my favorites down, like season 1, episode 1, and some of them are really little moments, like when Dawson and Joey are talking on the bell in the very first episode, and it basically gives you the theory of the whole show as how Dawson and Joey are going to deal with the reality that their life is changing, and on top of that, they're going to things are not going to be as light and fluffy as it once was. Things is getting ready to get wild. And as far as get wild, Dawson's mom cheats on his dad, and Joey starts liking Dawson, and she starts getting into it with Jen. Just that moment on the bed where they're talking back and forth, and Joey's getting ready to leave. I think it's one of my favorite moments of the show. Again, in season 1, episode 1, when Jen and I don't know what it is about this scene. It's just something about it that I just love it so much. I can't explain it, but when Dawson and Jen are talking on the dock, and then you hear Sophie Hawkins, "As I Lay Me Down," in the background, you hear that music. It's just something about that moment, and he takes her to his room, and he's explaining to her why he loves movies and all that. So those two moments are kind of stand out to me. Like I said earlier about season 7, episode 1, when Abby, plays Truth or Dare with the 4 main characters. I think that's I think that's one of my favorite parts of the whole show. Season 2, episode 8, when like I said earlier, when Pacey asked Miss McPhee to make him a sandwich, how he de-escalates the situation. Season 2, episode 14, Pacey standing up for Jack. I think that was great. I didn't like that he spit in the teacher's face. That's not something I would have done, but I definitely could see myself standing up for Jack if I would have seen the teacher trying to bully Jack into doing something he didn't want to do. When you could clearly see that there was a clear reason why. I don't know if I understood the reason why Jack was didn't want to say what he had to say, but I would have definitely had sensed the bullying in it, and it would have triggered something in me in high school. Like I've stood up for quite a few people in high school that were getting bullied, and some of them are still friends with me to this day. Actually, I just played one of them. We just got finished playing NBA 2K not too long ago, and we still cool to this day. And I hadn't seen him in years. When we had the high school reunion, he gave me the biggest hug, like ever when I seen him. We haven't seen each other in years, but I know he remembers. But I was saying that I know that was like, hey man, thanks for being a good friend. back then. Thanks for standing up for me. Season 2, episode 15. When Graham checks Tyson, I think that was a good moment where Tyson's trying to like use the Bible to get on Jack about being gay. And Graham steps in there and is like, hey, you need to check yourself and you understand there's a higher power that should be the judge versus you. I think that's a great moment.
Now, if you just let me explain I am not going to let you guys moral majority me here. I mean, you don't even know all the facts.
What I have to say isn't directed at you, Jen. What I have to say is for Tyson.
All I'm saying is
if Jack is gay, he does not need your judgment, young man. The Lord above will be the one to judge him, as he will all of us. What he needs from you, from me, from everyone else in this world is love and tolerance. If anything, that boy must feel scared and alone, and he will need the understanding of his fellow man to help him through this. Let's save judgment for someone much more experienced than you.
Abby kissing Jack, like I said earlier. Season 3, just like we just said, I remember everything. I think that to me, that's one of the best moments of the show. But for season 3, like to me, when Dawson, it's kind of like a scary movie a little bit on The Longest Day, when Dawson finds out that Paisley and Joey been like kind of like seeing each other behind their back, kissing and all of that. There's that moment when he finds out. It's kind of like, oh no, what's Dawson gonna do? To me, it's like one of the best moments too. And I figure I'd break down those first 3 seasons, because those are the best seasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're all good ones. I have to. It's another season 3 though. Obviously, everything with Pacey and Joey, but and at the end of True Love, where she turns up at the dock, and she's like, "I think I love you," and he says, "You think or you know?" And she's like, "I know." Oh, yeah, absolutely love it. But actually, I think it is actually that episode, Jack and Ethan's kiss, and Jack and Ethan rejecting Jack. And I think Jack and Ethan's kiss is such a powerful thing, because obviously they tried so hard to get that right, didn't they? And it was Greg Berlanti who he had loads of things put in place by the network, didn't he? And he just was like, no, this is what we're doing. And they did it. And then the bit where Jack goes back to his dad and he sort of collapses on the kitchen floor crying, and Jack's relationship with his dad, it's some of it's just truly heartbreaking. And then the fact that the actor who played Jack's dad, as you could see things were starting to get better, and they sort of were trying to repair that relationship, the actor actually passed away, didn't he? And that's why that's why Jack's dad didn't show up again. And actually the stuff around Jack in those early seasons, in season 3 particularly, as much as I didn't like Ethan, who was a pain in the arse, that kiss, and then the sort of subsequent Jack's dad trying to accept him and trying to understand what was going on was great. But there's also some great sort of comedic stuff in Dawson's Creek that doesn't always get, the Abby Morgan some of the time was just so hilarious. I mean, sometimes she was absolutely awful. The election episode springs to mind about how awful Abby
Very
can
awful,
be.
yeah.
But oh my God, the bit where she calls what does she call Jen? Like a slut, a whore, and a liar, or something like that, and Jen just smacks her in the face. It's just brilliant. Just things that you would want to be able to do in your own life. Jen just turns around and just cracks her one over the face, and she deserved it so massively. But I understand why Abby went, and I think that they tried to replicate her with Drew Valentine, and it didn't work in the same way, because Drew Valentine just kept on being a bit too sinister, and he became quite likable at the end. But the stuff where he locked himself in a cupboard with Joey and then was looking down her top was very uncomfortable, and then tried to kiss her.
Yeah, that was he was doing too much there.
He was doing far too much there. But then there was bits between him and Jen that were great. But just in terms of moments, it's always got to be don't you ever get tired of talking, on the side of the road. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But Jack gets some of the best moments as well, because I do love Jack. Love him.
Yeah, people don't talk about Jack moments enough.
No.
And that moment where he's crying, like you said, when he was crying, talking to his dad. Kind of like I forget what he says. He says, "I would not be quiet." I thought was the best line.
Yeah, but to Jack and Jen in general, that see, Alex, you were referring to music and how it enhances the scene. I think it's at the end of season 2 where that Jack shows up at Jen and Grams's house, and it's Alanis Morissette, That I Would Be Good, playing in the background. And that's a really beautiful scene where Jen says, like, I think there's someone else who needs your help or something. She says something along the lines of that, and then Jack shows up, and then Jack moves in with Grams and Jen.
Was there a third?
Yes. Or somebody else who doesn't want to be alone anymore.
That final episode of series 2, there's a really good job of sort of wrapping up all of the main characters, and that's the best bit of it. It's the sort of the start of Jack and Jen living together, and therefore the sort of start of their really close bond. And well, maybe we should move on to that. Actually, the characters. Who are your favorite characters, do you think?
I wrote down like a top 8. These are honestly my favorite characters in a row. Pacey's my favorite character for sure. Pacey, especially season 2 Pacey, I just think he's brilliant. Saving, like I said, helping with Andy's mom. I think him and Andy had the best relationship on the show.
Agree.
To be personal, yeah, I think they had the best one. Even though I do love Pacey and Joey's chemistry, though. I think in a lot of moments, Pacey has his bad moments. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a lot of moments where Pacey he's like the levity of the show. And what I mean by that, he kind of checks all the characters. Not necessarily put them in their place like in a bad way, but there are moments where he's like, hey, this is how you are. This is how you handle this situation. Rethink what you're doing, and he kind of does that very well. So Pacey's my number 1. Number 2, my favorite character, second favorite character is Mr. Brooks from season 4.
Oh, I love Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, I love Mr. Brooks, man. I know
I just love how he just owns Dawson constantly. It's the funniest.
Yeah, and people kind of get on him about that a little bit on the podcast. But people don't understand that's an old school way of trying to.
We thought it was hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's an old school method of trying to get the best out of someone.
I think Dawson needed it. He needed to have someone just slap him down a bit. He can be insufferably smug, Dawson.
The actor that plays Mr. Brooks, I think he did a great job. I think he did amazing to me on that. Maybe the best acting possibly in the whole show. Jen is my third favorite character. I think Jen's amazing, man. I think she gets cooked a little bit sometime on the show as a character. And when you look at Michelle Williams now, you just wish they could have did more with her as a character on the show.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. I got Dawson at number 4. I got Dawson number 4 because I think the critique of him sometimes is overwhelming. And I think sometimes people don't really look at what actually happens to him. The reason why Dawson can't be my personal favorite on the show is because I don't think Dawson is a great lead character. I think maybe it should have been Joey's Creek or maybe Pacey's Creek. I think the thing about Dawson, like when things happen to him, it's fine, but he doesn't. Like when you look at Will Smith on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it's a little bit different type of like person. When you look at Urkel on Family Matters, it's a little bit different type of person, or even like Ryan on the OC. Ryan is more like okay, what is Ryan going to do about this? Like with Dawson, it's kind of like just things happen to him and he just reacts to it, So that's why he probably can never be my number 1 on this show. I got Jack at 5. I love Jack. I just think in the later seasons, I don't think they know what to do with him, and his character kind of changes a little bit. But that season 2 and 3 Jack, I absolutely love. I got Abby at 6. I got Gretchen at 7, and I got Nikki at 8. Those are my top 8.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad you got Gretchen in there. I think she's
I love Gretchen.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gretchen wound me up like nothing else. I was like, stop being nice to Dawson. Stop it, Gretchen. Stop it. I mean, I liked Gretchen, but like, well, no, she just kept going on about his great big beating heart. She said it more than once and it really bugged me. I was like, Gretchen, stop it. You are better than this. You are better than this. Like, I think around Gretchen, I hated all of the rewriting of history. Like, suddenly in season 4, Dawson's first crush was no longer Joey, but it was Gretchen. We were like, do you remember in Buffy, whenever was the sister Dawn suddenly showed up? And I know she suddenly showed up for a reason, but it felt like that. Like, where's his character come from?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Was it, do you think that they just needed to have a replacement for Andy to sort of keep the gender balance roughly equal? So they thought, well, Andy's gone, so let's get in another female actor.
Well, I think it could be that, but I also think more so it was to try and find a foil for Dawson, like a romantic foil for Dawson.
Yeah,
Because
I think
Dawson needs a like, as the lead character, he needed that
yeah. I was
romantic
just
lead
getting ready to
thing.
say, yeah, he is the lead character. I'm just getting ready to say that. He is the lead.
But as much as I like Gretchen, she was too good for that shit. She was too good for it.
I tend to think like Gretchen. I was like, Gretchen, you're a little bit too old for this like high school drama. You're like 21. Like.
That's what we had this conversation, because we were like, I know that it is not a big age difference, but I think at that age it kind of is. Like, she's been in college, she's obviously had a lot of experience, and Dawson's like 17, 18. It feels like, why would a woman like Gretchen be like, oh yeah, let me date my brother's best mate? It doesn't seem, it doesn't seem to make a huge amount of sense to me.
I agree
Logically.
wholeheartedly on that. And,
But,
I love this for Dawson, but I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly.
yeah, it's when people enable Dawson, I can't. Like Todd in season 6, I'm like, why is Dawson running your entire film set, mate? Like, this doesn't make any sense. He's like 19.
You know what's funny about that? Like, we never see his movies, so we don't even know if his movies are good or not. You know,
we know they're not, Keith. So I've got a few characters I really, really like. I love Jack and Jen. For me, Jack and Jen, like, I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly with you, Keith, is that Jen was massively underused and so was Jack. But they're both just so likable. I think that they put up with a lot of shit both in the show and from the show, if that makes sense. Like, so from other characters, but also effectively from the writers. They could have done a lot more with them, and especially the talent of the two actors. But love both of them. But there's other, like, sort of more minor characters that I love. I loved me a bit of Abby Morgan. Who doesn't love? I mean, she had a really bad moments, but as that sort of like antagonizer, like that sort of agent of chaos, amazing, the best. I also in season 5 really liked Oliver.
Okay.
I have a lot of space for Oliver. I think it's because he made me laugh. I think it's because he's now incredibly hot, because we Google all these actors now and we're like, see how hot this person is now. But also, like, it's interesting. I had a conversation with Julia from Dawson's Critique about it, and she sort of said, I always like read him as quite neurodiverse, and I was like, yes, that does make sense. And I feel like Oliver, I just think he's funny. And like when he first shows up and like Dawson's with Jen and Oliver like just can't speak to her. And then he, like, when they break up, decides he's going to crack onto her.
He's to me, he's okay, you know, but I love that you love him though.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of some other bit part characters. I mean, obviously Colin Manchester, the best name character ever on Dawson's Creek, from one of the worst episodes in season 2. What was it called? Psychic Friends. It's the most stupid episode, but this character called Colin Manchester crops up, and we were like, we just found it. Like, is Manchester a surname? I don't believe it is. It's a really famous city in the UK, but it's a pity because there doesn't feel to be like, aside from Joey and Jen and maybe Gretchen, a huge sort of like amount of really great female characters on Dawson's Creek, and it's like Nikki was amazing. She did not get the time she deserved. But like all the other characters, like, that you can think of, if like just a character pops into your head. Audrey, I really like Audrey. But they're there to do something really specific, and that stuff is often not good stuff. and so that's kind of from that point of view a bit disappointing. But it's Jack and Jen all the way for me, with a bit of Audrey, because I did love Audrey. I do love Audrey.
I like Audrey too.
Yeah, she's good laugh, like Audrey. She's very like my co-host Katie. But I like me a bit of Oliver. Bless him.
No,
Disappeared again in season 6 of course.
Yeah, he did disappear in a weird way, didn't he? Yeah, just sort of.
They just sort of explained him away.
Yeah.
As they do so often on Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah, people just disappear. You don't know where they go.
It's kind of sinister when you think about it, isn't it? Like, how many bodies are there in that creek somewhere?
It's all Dawson. It's all Dawson.
Yeah. I think my favorite characters are really realistically it's Joey and Pacey, because I was in love with Joey Potter when I was watching it. When I first watched it, she was
who wouldn't be?
No, she was my dream girl, especially in the earlier series when she was like
very gorgeous, very gorgeous.
Yeah, and she was like beating up jocks in the cafeteria and like wisecracking, and like she was so like in those first series especially, she was kind of different but like so cool. And obviously played by Katie Holmes, who was my dream woman. And then Pacey, I either wanted to be Pacey or just be friends with him. So I guess that's part of the reason why I just loved those two getting together, because it was like sort of living vicariously through Pacey, and the chemistry, like you said, Keith, was so good between those two. It was, I guess, because they had dated in real life that maybe played into it. So they're probably my two favorite. But on the rewatch, I think again, like you say, Kathryn, I think Jack maybe became my favorite. Actually, he seemed like the person I most want to be friends with. He's the most rational. He's the most reasonable. He's not the one. He's the one that isn't causing arguments all the time. He's the one that's like solving arguments and like being the diplomat and putting out fires, and helps Grams and Jen through all of their stuff. And I think he's just the steadiest, sort of strongest character all the way through. I didn't like him that much at the start when he was sort of interfering with Dawson and Joey, and I don't know.
Not even when Joey painted him as a coquettish potato on a couch. That is one of that picture she draws of him is so bad. Oh my god, the coquettish potato.
We definitely didn't like Jack early when he was interfering with Dawson and Joe. We definitely didn't like that.
Yeah. Then he came into his own, I think, and sort of became such an important character in the whole thing. So, and his relationship with Jen, that's probably my favorite relationship, actually. Not even Pacey and Joey, it's Jack and Jen, because it's like, it's just always so like comforting and healthy, and they care for each other, and it's just like, it works. And well, let's not talk about the finale. We didn't actually talk about the finale in our favorite episodes, but it's one of the greatest TV finales of all time.
To it, I think.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't like that Jen died. I ain't gonna lie.
No,
I didn't want her to die.
No. Do you know what it felt like to me? It felt like a real Forrest Gump. He killed a slut.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that blonde harlot, get her gone. That blonde harlot with a child out of wedlock, kill her.
Yeah.
That's how it felt. You know, when they did that to Jenny in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, it's Jen, isn't it? Yeah, it's true.
Some of those Jens, huh?
But they're my favorite characters. But when it comes to worst, and there's
Toby.
I mean, you guys. Toby, okay, but you guys in series 5 and 6 are starting to get way more to choose from, I'd say. But
oh god, there's some such bad characters.
Yeah, for me, I think Eve at the start of season 3 is just a fish out of water. She's like people in the writers' room thinking, what can we throw into this program to make it like a different sort of program or liven it up, and it just doesn't work. And she's got the weirdest sort of ending, and that whole sort of conspiracy.
Well, there wasn't an ending.
No, exactly. But like this, is she Jen's sister or something? It was so
never
weird.
Resolved. Love at Dawson's Creek, never resolved. But you see, the thing about Eve is, it's not. She wasn't. It was badly done, but actually she was kind of, and I think they were going Abby Morgan again, but like it was kind of enjoyable to watch while you were watching her, like her trying to give a BJ a Dawson on a speedboat in front of loads of people. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
like,
that is the potential turning point of Dawson's Creek, was if they had more BJs on speedboats. That was like, is that the direction we're going to go in? But then they switched the writer around there, didn't they?
Yeah, Gina Fatare came in and
Yeah.
Greg Berlanti came in, didn't they? But like it's her turning Dawson's house into spearmint rhino, as Katie likes to say,
Yeah.
like a strip club. It's hilarious. It's
Yeah.
like, but they found their feet. But season 3, there are some terrible characters in season 3. AJ, terrible, awful, horrible. Ethan, who does he think he is? Like, he drove me insane, Ethan. I
Yeah.
was like, we always used to joke, it was like how to be gay with Ethan, because he was some sort of oracle with which Jack had to listen and behave how he was told to behave, and it drove us mental. Toby, I know, came in season 4. The most worrying thing was where he was like driving drunk people around and making jokes about how it was a weight hit on men. Absolutely disturbing, horrible, awful character. And he did have this slight moment where he explained like how he was really, really badly bullied, and you're like, right, okay, Toby, I'll try and get on board with you. And he continued to be nothing but completely awful to Jack. Like he drove me insane as well. Like, Jack has the worst taste in men.
Yeah, we hate Charlie over here. Oh, we don't like Charlie a lot. And I don't like how Joey gave him a chance. Another thing where Joey's decision kind of killed him. Like, Joey does make these decisions, and I'm just like, Joey, like, you see what he just did to Jen. Why would you even give this guy a kiss? I just didn't like. I just don't think.
I totally agree. Well, look at the way she speaks to Jen. Whenever Jen says, like, "Come on, Joey, you've seen what he's like," and she's really horrible to Jen.
Yeah.
Some of Joey's decision making throughout this whole series is just so
crazy,
weird to me. Yeah, but
bloody Wilder.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Another predatory teacher. No teacher.
Yeah,
no
that's
teacher
true.
on Dawson's Creek is not a predator.
And there's another teacher that comes in. Yeah. Yeah. And in series 6, there's going to be another teacher, Hetson, who's even worse.
Oh, he's terrible. Oh, he's an absolute. At the moment, he's not a predator, though. That's the one thing he's got going for him. Yet he might be, though. Give it time.
But yeah, I think a lot of the characters that Kathryn said, I agree. A lot of them were, I would put in the worst. I know some people probably expect me to say Joey. I don't think Joey's one of the worst characters. I just didn't like her decision making. That's it. But as far as what I think is the worst characters, I think that teacher on season 2, me and Kathryn was talking about it.
Peterson.
Off screen, we were talking about it, and Charlie, I just think he's nuts.
It's so nuts.
Like,
Stalker, he's a fucking stalker. He stalks her to Miami. Like, what the hell? This isn't romance, Dawson's Creek. This is disturbing and awful.
Tamara, I didn't like Tamara. I'm like, Tamara, you got to put your foot down. Come on, girl. Put your foot down and tell Pacey that this can't happen, Like,
Stop sexually abusing your students, Tamara.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's that. Let me see. I wasn't the biggest fan of Drew. I wouldn't say he's one of the worst characters, but I haven't really talked about him. So I'll just say I wasn't the biggest fan, kind of like what Kathryn was saying earlier. He did feel like a hand-me-down Abby Morgan. Eve, no, not like I didn't hate Eve as much as everybody else did. It's just she caused some chaos, which was similar to Abby Morgan. I didn't think she was one of the worst characters. I just didn't know how a character like her could fit into the Dawson's Creek world, because she kind of didn't make no sense. Because like a lot of people say, she was kind of there, but it was like, was she really there? And it was like, well, how? I don't think people really knew the age of the girl, and like what was her purpose? It just, her purpose seemed kind of weird. Like, she blended in weird to me.
I just don't think, I think they were like, let's bring in this sexy character. Let's bring in one of the Sweet Valley High twins. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it a bit noir-y. And that's as far as they got. They didn't have a plan. They didn't know what they were doing. And it shone through. It shone through that they did. They just wanted Dawson to have a bit of sexy time. And it's really weird that season 3 is as good as it is when they completely changed everything halfway through.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. No one else has mentioned Henry. Henry was a bad character, right?
Henry was insane, right?
Another example of not really convincing us of why someone would fancy him, because I don't see why Jen would go for Henry. Like, he was,
because he looked like this was post Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio, and he looked a little bit like that.
Yeah, I guess he had the curtains. Did he have curtains?
Yeah, he did. He was like Michael Pitt at that point. But Yeah, Henry. But again, one of the reasons that Henry was a problem, and Dawson's Creek does this to us again and again and again, is that they made us think that toxic behavior was romance, like he's hanging from the rafters and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that convinces Jen. And actually, when people are doing that, that's love bombing, and you should probably take a step back and assess the situation. But like, there's such toxicity in Dawson's Creek, and Dawson and this is one of the reasons why I can't continue to get on board with Dawson, even though I kind of would like to. And I think when I was younger, I really did. But he's quite toxic in his behaviours towards women. Like, one of the first things he does in season 1 is slut shame Jen for daring to have had a sexual partner. Like, and then blames her for it, and like there's a lot of it that runs through Dawson's Creek, and I think that I love Dawson's Creek and it's brilliant, but I think watching it on reflection, I'm like, oh, this explains some of the things that I thought and felt whenever I was a teenager. Not entirely. I'm not going to blame everything on Dawson's Creek. It's rife in culture at the time and even now. But there's some real toxicity. Even Pacey, like the way that he gets on sometimes is a bit much. And but yeah, Henry was massively toxic, and yet we were being sold it by the TV show as something that was massively romantic. And isn't this great that he's doing this? He's so into Jen.
Yeah, one of the tricky things about our job as far as podcasters to break down these shows is that we also got to understand that we are supposed to see the bad moments in the shows, and that's it's part of the show. Like like Dawson, Joey, and Jen, they're supposed to mess up so we can, you know what I mean? Like, they're supposed to mess up, you know what I mean? But yeah, like when Dawson says that about Jen, he was without shadow of a doubt out of pocket. Dawson was out of pocket quite a few times on the show. Like when he reads Joey's diary, that was wild. I'm like, what are you doing?
God.
Like I got on him hard about that. And I hate what he said about Pacey when he was drunk on his birthday. That was just I hated that. I hated when he
speech.
did it. Yeah, But as far as Henry, I guess we can go on Henry. Henry is a little bit of a conundrum for me, because there's one point in season 3 where Henry is like over Jen. Well, not to say over Jen, but he's left Jen alone. He's like, okay, she's not feeling me. I tried. I'm gonna say this first before I say that. There's no world where Jen dates a freshman. Like
100%.
Listen, yeah. So let me say that. So there's another thing that we were talking about as far as them making Jen doing wild stuff on the show. I think this is another wild situation they kind of put Michelle Williams in. But she did the best she could with it. But anyway, we could talk about the show at face value now. Now Jen, he's a kid that had a crush, okay, on Jen. Okay, understandable. That storyline, I don't always talk about Henry because like he's kind of a conundrum. I don't even really know how to feel about him.
Exactly, and in the end, he dumps her. How is that possible? Henry dumps Jen at the beginning of season 4, right? Because he goes off to football camp or something.
Yeah, which don't make sense.
On what planet?
He does all this to get Jen back, and then that happens. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. This is what y'all want to do. I don't really want to see Jen with him anyway. So fine, let him go.
Yeah. It was weak writing, I think, wasn't it? The way they just got rid of him.
But I think as well, probably it's always one of those things. Like, I bet Michael Pitt got some work and went off to do that.
Right, the theme tune. Can we discuss the theme tune? Well, there's 2 theme tunes, aren't there? I don't know what it's like for you, Keith, in America, how it's done on your streaming services and when it was aired and stuff. But there's the original theme tune, I Don't Want to Wait, by Paula Cole, and then there was the one that replaced it.
Technically the other way around. The original theme tune is Run Like Mad.
Yeah, that was written for it, wasn't it? And then
that was written for it, and then they used I Don't Want to Wait in the promos, and they were like, well, just use that song.
Yeah.
But Paula Cole's re-recorded it, so it's on everything now, I believe.
I think that's right. Yeah. And it was originally going to be Hand in My Pocket by Alanis Morissette. Did you know that? That was what
I didn't know that.
Wouldn't have worked.
That's what they wanted to use before they got anything else. But yeah, unfortunately they didn't.
Weird choice. I know what they were going for, but weird choice. I really like Run Like Mad. I think it's a bop.
Do you? I'm not a fan. I think maybe it's because I Don't Want to Wait so much, but Run Like Mad just sounds naff to me.
I like Run Like Mad.
Yeah, me too.
Do you prefer it?
Not better than I Don't Want to Wait, but I do like Run Like Mad.
Okay, good. God, I was worried we were both going to say something.
Oh God, no!
Crazy.
Like I Don't Want to Wait is the best, one of the best, if not the best TV theme tunes ever.
Yeah.
But I do think Run Like Mad's a bop. I think like when it was on Netflix playing that, I was like into it. I was disappointed it wasn't I Don't Want to Wait, but I was into it. I wasn't like, it didn't ruin my day.
Well,
I agree wholeheartedly.
I'm surprised. I'm shocked. But well, I'm glad someone likes it.
Alex is really disappointed with me.
Isn't I Don't Want to Wait by Paula Cole? Isn't it the one that's about someone, her partner going off to war and then coming back? So that doesn't really follow with Dawson's Creek either. There's someone like their husband coming back from war and he's like all torn up.
For some reason, the tune and the melody of it feels like it correlates with the Dawson's Creek show. You know, even though I think the words are not what the song is about doesn't correlate. But I think it's just something about the tune and the melody. It just somehow it just makes sense, you know, for the show.
But I suppose the song in itself is like about fate and about what might happen in life, and that sort of sense of maybe hope and not wanting to know what life might offer. And I suppose like the whole point of Dawson's Creek is being on the precipice of a whole new sort of way of life and time of life, isn't it? So that's I think why I Don't Want to Wait works quite well there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't look at it like that. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I definitely think it's my favorite theme tune of all time.
I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I want to know right now, what will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be? Yes, or will it be?
I also think the final credits music works really well. That's such nostalgic music for me.
Yeah,
both of them actually. They're I could barely listen to them because they're so nostalgic. But yeah, and the music throughout the whole thing I think was pretty good, wasn't it? They chose some good songs like Fields of Gold.
They did really well. Oh yeah, they did really well
Believer.
at times. And the Joni Mitchell thing we've referenced it loads of times, but both sides now. When Pacey's watching Asleep in Weekend in the Country, it's just perfect.
It's life's illusions that I recall. I really don't know life.
On the DVDs and maybe on streaming, they had to take some of the music out and change it. So I'm never quite sure if I'm listening to what it's supposed to be. Which is a real shame because they obviously got it right, I think, the first time.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. And yeah, like I remember watching some of it, and obviously, as you'll be very aware, Alex, my husband's a musician and knows quite a lot about that. And he's like, there's things like REM were pulled, there was some Bruce Springsteen pulled, and he's like, yeah, because you're not just going to keep on paying for that. That would have been expensive.
Right, so to finish this off then, shall we talk about the legacy of Dawson's Creek? What do you guys think the legacy is?
The legacy will live on because the reason why the legacy of Dawson Creek is so important is because of the nuance that it brings to podcasts and what is done for shows after it. Dawson's Creek was like the first, well, I guess you could say My So-Called Life had the first gay guy, but it wasn't mentioned. But Dawson's Creek had the first gay kiss on teen TV. So that was huge. And when you see that happen, it opened the door. Like now you got shows like Elite that has gay characters all over the place. You know, and there's another show called Control Z where like one of the main characters is actually trans. So it's just I think if you don't have Dawson's Creek, you know, you probably don't have an Elite or a 13 Reasons Why or any of these shows. Because even sort of after Dawson's Creek, there were shows that was like kind of coming out around the time. They wasn't necessarily going in that realm, but you probably don't have sex education without Dawson's Creek, you know, where one of the main, like the main character is a straight guy, but his best friend is gay, and he's one of the most pivotal characters on the show. Yeah, so I don't know if you have without these type of shows without Dawson's Creek, and I don't know if you. And Dawson's Creek is probably also the first show where people really, really got into having the trifecta as far as two guys like a one girl, two girls like a one guy. I think it was the first show where people really pointed out and made it a thing. All people could talk about was who's Joey's going to pick. Is she going to pick Dawson or is she going to pick Pacey? Is she going to pick Dawson or Pacey? And then you see other shows. You got the OC. So you had that right there. Then you had a couple with I was gonna say Golden Girls, but Gossip Girls. They had like two or three. That show's a little different. But if you don't have Dawson's Creek, you probably got people afraid to make these type of shows. The shows probably wouldn't even be as edgy, if it wasn't for Dawson's Creek. So it was a start of something. So the legacy will live on forever.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I know that My So-Called Life was there before it, but it ended so abruptly. I don't even think, did they get into the second season? Maybe 2 seasons.
I think it was just one season.
Yeah, I think that maybe Dawson's Creek wouldn't have had the same life without My So-Called Life, but there have been so many shows afterwards like that sprang out because of Dawson's Creek, like One Tree Hill, The OC, Friday Night Lights, and it just it opened up an entire world of a viewership as well, because I think that it was like the sort of flagship for the CW, right, wasn't it? And that was a brand new, like, let's target teenagers. So, and Dawson's Creek was a pivotal part of that. So I couldn't agree more, Keith, that you wouldn't have any of the amazing teen TV that we would all be happy to sit and watch. Like, we would all sit and watch a Euphoria, and we would all, as we said at the beginning, we sat and watched A Pretty Little Liars. I watched Riverdale. None of those things would be possible without Dawson's Creek. But I also think Dawson's Creek ushered in, like, also treating teenagers like they weren't stupid, and I know that they sort of took it probably a little bit far with the vocabulary, but it was still so much fun to watch. But also I think there was a cleverness in the writing that Kevin Williamson brought in with him, and it's the same, like, that sort of slightly genre bending, referential meta stuff that worked so well in Scream. Like, and it was great. It was like being talked to, and it's something that's so natural on TV now, like all of those sorts of references. And I don't think that it would have been possible without Dawson's Creek. And I think we've got so much to thank Dawson's Creek for. And I know we all rag on it because we do, and it was of a very different time, and there's things that you just wouldn't do now. And for that, we should be grateful, because it can show us how far we've come in certain ways. But I am just really sad, because if people, like, I have to say, there's a really great book called Freaks, Gleeks and Dawson's Creek by an author called Thea
I actually
Glassman.
have that book. Yeah,
it's so good. It's so nostalgic. It's so brilliant. But she talks a lot about it. But I interviewed her, and Deputy Doug wrote like a spin-off.
Oh wow! Awesome.
About the Witter family. He wrote a spin-off about the Witter family and was trying to shop it around to studios, and it didn't get anywhere. And I was like, because the one thing I hope that they don't do is try and remake Dawson's Creek, and I am sure someone's trying as we speak.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think it needs a reboot, but yeah, I think that it was so important.
I don't know how you could reboot it. I don't know how you can. I don't think there's nothing that you could do that would be so risky.
Well, look at Euphoria. They're all taking drugs and having sex with each other, and everyone's like, yeah, sure. That's fine. We'll all watch that. Like, Dawson's Creek of its time, it did do some risky things, like the kiss with Jack and Ethan, and having an openly gay character, and that to us now just feels like, well, yeah.
Like the norm, yeah.
But not without Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a beautiful way to end the episode.
Hashtag not without Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Right, so guys, do you want to tell everyone where they can hear your podcast and get a bit more of this Dawson's Creek chat? Keith, where can we find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram, me and Damon, my partner Damon, my best friend, on Instagram and Twitter at Dawson Black 10. All you gotta do is type that in, and as far as the podcast, you can get our podcast anywhere any podcast platform that you choose. All you gotta do is type in Dawson Black in a search, and we're right there for you. And we go, we're gonna try to make you laugh. We're gonna talk about the surges of the show, but we also try to make you laugh as well, man. We get kind of nutty on there, but I think people will enjoy it if you give us a shot.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's great. It's a great podcast.
Thank you
We're
so
over
much.
it. No, it really is, and it's definitely worth listening to and going back to the beginning and start at episode 1. Which I'm going to say for our podcast as well, even though our sound was not good at the beginning. But that's the same for loads of podcasts, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, we're Dawson's weekly pod, and it's weekly with an A. The irony of it is that we haven't really released an episode in months, but we are going to come back to it. So if people are waiting for us or people want to start, by the time you get there into season 6, we'll be back on it. But we're on the same as Keith on all of the platforms wherever you listen. Just search for us and we'll crop up. In fact, just search for Dawson's and you'll find loads of dead good Dawson's Creek podcasts. But start with ours and Keith's, I think, and Keith's and Damon's.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I can attest to the fantastic quality of both podcasts. So please do listen to them. I will put the links in the episode description below, so you don't have to worry about trying to search for them. They'll just be down there. So click on them. And guys, yeah, as a Dawson's Creek fan and a podcasting fan, it is a massive honor to have both of you on our podcast talking about this program. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about the greatest team program of all time. And
Yes.
I can't thank you guys enough.
Oh, thank
you for thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man. This Dawson's Creek family has really been inviting. I wasn't sure. Like I told my boy, it's gonna be 2 black guys talking about a predominantly white show. I don't know how it's gonna go. But Dawson's Critique, they hit the like button on one of our tweets, and everybody been showing us love. You guys have been showing us love, and it's just amazing. I just can't even believe we got as many followers as we got. We got like over 100-something followers on Twitter and over 100-something on Instagram. So it's just it's been an amazing journey. You guys have been really great. We appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, the Dawson's Creek community is absolutely, like, without a doubt, just the best. Amazing, so welcoming, so kind, just brilliant, wonderful people.
There's another legacy of the show, I suppose, is the community that it's sort of sprung up around it. So
yeah, absolutely,
it's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
Well, Stu, thanks for waiting outside for those 4 hours. Hopefully I can get that edited down to closer to an hour. Yeah, hopefully you could amuse yourself for that time.
Well, yeah, but these Fiat Uno taxis aren't cheap, He's been waiting out there for ages now.
Yeah, so I forgot that the meter was still running.
It's still going out there, but luckily it is at a 1992 price, so I might be able to manage it.
Yeah. Okay, well, much appreciated. It was well worth it as far as I'm concerned, because that was a fantastic chat with Keith and Kathryn, and really grateful for them for coming on. And it took us a long time to find a time and a date to do that, considering the Atlantic between us, but we did it.
Absolutely wonderful guests. I'm glad you had a great time. I'm hoping now that next time you need to take a holiday from the podcast, I might be able to fill in and speak about an issue that maybe you're not quite so keen on. So I'll have to have a think about that and see what I can come up with.
Yeah, I definitely owe you one now, so have a think.
I will do.
If you are also a fan of Dawson's Creek or have anything to say about anything else we've talked about on the pod, please do get in touch in the usual ways via our link tree, which is linked to below. You will find us on Instagram and X, and there's an email address on there and our YouTube channel. So please do get in touch and let us know your thoughts on anything 90s.
Well, I am going to jump in the Fiat Uno and get myself back to Bristol Airport then, mate, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't want to hold you up anymore. And I appreciate you putting a t-shirt on, because I know when you first came on the Zoom call, you just had your trunks on. So I appreciate you putting a shirt on for the record. And enjoy the rest of your holiday.
I will do. Another part of the contract is I have to wear a shirt at all times. Funnily enough, that part isn't in your contract, is it? You record most of the episodes bare-chested, but for some reason I have to stay covered up. Just before I do go, though, a quick word on our next episode. We are very much looking forward to welcoming F1 podcaster and YouTuber Peter Brook onto the show. And we're going to be talking about some more of our favourite F1 moments from the 90s, aren't we?
We are. I cannot believe it. Back to back, Dawson's Creek and then 90s Formula One. I am absolutely in seventh heaven at the moment on this podcast.
Yeah, but then after that, the pendulum will swing back to me, because we've got an OG podcast legend coming on if everything comes off. And I'm going to get to quiz him on a song that's gone into podcast folklore. So you don't want to miss that either. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic as well. Well, until then, that is about us done. So it is goodbye from me. I am just off to begin my 4th rewatch of Dawson's Creek from the beginning.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm just off to have a quick skim of the Wikipedia synopsis for the entire series because I just can't be bothered to do that.
You're missing out, Stu.
Let's take this offline. Let's take it offline. I got to get in the fucking car.
All right, okay. Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Adios, amigos.
Goodbye.